Folks, Black Star Network is here.
Hold no punches!
I'm real revolutionary right now. Black power.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
It's Wednesday, July 3rd, 2024. I'm Dr. Omekongo Dibinga, sitting in for Roland Martin, who's in Ethiopia. Here's what's coming up on Roland Martin Unfiltered, streaming live on the Black Star Network. Federal judges ordered the Mississippi Legislature to create more black districts. We'll talk to one of the attorneys involved about this case and how it will impact November's ballot. President Joe Biden is under pressure to withdraw from the election. We'll discuss how the Allegheny County, Pennsylvania Democratic Black Caucus is launching the Brothas For Biden campaign to help keep Biden in the White House. A Louisiana family says they were wrongfully targeted by police who were looking for a suspect at the wrong address. Bodycam videos and 2 fatal police-involved shootings of young men have been released. We'll show you what happened in both instances. The Atlanta City Council votes to settle a lawsuit with 2 college students who were tased and pulled from their vehicle during the protest after George Floyd's death. In our Tech Talk segment, Fanbase founder Isaac Hayes III will discuss reaching $1.6 million during his last raise. It's time to bring the funk on Roland Martin Unfiltered, streaming live on the Black Star Network. Let's go.
He's got it. Whatever the miss, he's on it. Whatever it is.
It's time to bring the funk on Roland Martin Unfiltered, streaming live on the Black Star Network. Let's go.
He's got it. Whatever the miss, he's on it. Whatever it is, he's got the scoop, the fact, the find. And when it breaks, he's right on time and it's rolling. Best believe he's knowing. Putting it down from sports to news to politics. With entertainment just for kicks, he's rolling. It's on go, roll, y'all. It's Roland Martin, rolling with Roland now. He's funk, he's fresh, he's real, the best, you know he's Roland Martin now.
Judges ordered Mississippi to redraw some of its legislative districts, saying the current ones dilute the power of black voters in the 3 parts of the state. The judges found that the districts drawn by the state legislature in 2022 diluted black voting strength. Legislative redistricting occurs every 10 years after the federal census. Jennifer Nwachukwu, senior counsel of the Voting Rights Project with the Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights under Law, joins us to discuss the victory. Jennifer, thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you so much for having me.
First of all, I wanted to make sure I pronounce your last name properly.
Nwachukwu, yes.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Can you talk about, just off the jump, the significance of this ruling, particularly when we're dealing with so many other issues relating to voting and access across the country? What does this mean where you are?
This is a major victory for Black folks. It's a major victory specifically for Black Mississippians. There has been a lot of, cases that have come down recently that I think, have folks concerned about what is to come in the future. And it's great that we have a bit of a silver lining here with this case and the decision that the court made in recognizing that the state legislative maps in Mississippi did dilute a number of Black Mississippians' votes.
Now, as great a victory as this is, I get concerned, particularly we're in July now, getting closer to the election. I get very concerned with how so many of these other states and districts, when they have had to deal with issues like this, they slow walk these particular situations or just decide to outright ignore it. Are there concerns about that, or are there particular measures that are in place that can actually make this happen in real time?
Well, in this instance, we engaged in litigation to be able to enforce the mechanisms and requirements of the Voting Rights Act and the U.S. Constitution. And as a result of not only the litigation, but particularly our plaintiffs and witnesses who participated in this litigation, now the Mississippi Legislature will have to go through the process of redrawing its districts. The court has indicated that it's the desire of the court to have newly redrawn districts and legislators in place for the 2025 legislative session that will begin early next year. We still have to iron out what that timeline will be, but it is our hope that we will be able to get the ball rolling on the different legislative processes, have the public involved and engaged when those processes become available to the public, so that the legislature will, in fact, put in place fair maps for Black Mississippians.
And so this is something that will not have an impact in the current election, but will start to go into effect in 2025?
It will have an effect starting in 2025, but it is our hope that with this victory and with this announcement from the court, that it will really galvanize support among community members to be encouraged and, most importantly, to be engaged going into November's general election. We understand that presidential elections are very important, and that kind of momentum does often translate into future election cycles where folks will continue their engagement. So we're hoping that this win and the public's participation and involvement in future legislative redistricting processes around this case will encourage folks to participate in the future.
It seems like across the country, we've just had so many losses. And to have this win, could you just talk about the work that you all had to do on the ground, the convincing, what strategies did you undertake that you feel could also be useful for folks around the country? Because this is something that is going to continue to come up.
Well, we had a really great group of plaintiffs in our case. We represented the Mississippi State Conference of the NAACP and over a dozen individual voters. And the individual voters in particular, all of them are civically engaged in their respective communities. These are folks who are members of their local NAACP chapters. Some have even run for office locally and within the Mississippi State Legislature. So we have folks that are engaged. We know that there are more folks who are also engaged and are very concerned about what's happening in their local communities and what's happening in their state. And this lawsuit really came about from the people. After COVID, the process for going through redistricting was delayed a bit because of the pandemic. And there were public hearings and opportunities for people to be able to vocalize what their concerns were going into the 2022 redistricting process and cycle. And we talked to people who were engaged in that process, who had concerns about the process, who had concerns and reservations about how these districts were drawn as a result of the 2020 census and the process that the state legislature engaged in. And I think ultimately, as a lawyer, it is our job to put forth the best case that we can, but we cannot do that without the public support. We can't do that without public involvement and participation. And this case really is a testament to not just our clients, but the strength of Black Mississippians and their desire to really have an integral role in what comes out of their state legislature. Over the course of the case, we learned about, and the court learned in particular, about a number of issues that affect Black voters all across the state. And as we move forward, it is our hope that once these boundaries for the districts that we have been successful in challenging are redrawn, that Black voters in those areas will be able to elect the candidates of their choice who are attuned to the needs of Black community members and will advocate for those needs and issues in the state legislature.
Could you talk to us a little bit about what it looks like now versus what's going to happen after the redrawing takes place? I mean, what are the real challenges that you're dealing with right now that this win is going to change? That's what's really happening on the ground in Mississippi that this is affecting.
Absolutely. So as I mentioned before, the court heard a lot of testimony from a very wide age range of folks in Mississippi. And our plaintiffs and witnesses were very consistent on issues such as education, access to hospitals, infrastructure projects for their communities in order to improve the economic base in those areas. So those are just a few of the issues that matter to Black voters. Medicare was something that came up very consistently throughout the testimony that was provided to the court. So we know that this is just a small handful of issues that matter to Black voters in Mississippi. And again, as this process kind of unfolds with the legislature, the goal and the hope is that the legislature will follow the heed and the direction of the court in drawing districts that will give Black voters that opportunity to be able to elect the candidates that they believe will best represent their interests.
Absolutely. Well, I have an incredible panel of legal and political experts who also have some questions they want to share. So we're going to take a break and we're going to come right back. I'll introduce the panel and they will share their questions with you as well. We'll be right back on the Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network.
Coming soon to the Black Star Network.
I still have my NFL contract in my house. I have it in a case. It's 4 of them for my 4-year contract. I got a $600,000 signing bonus. My base salary for that first year was $150,000. Matter of fact,
$150,000.
$150,000. That's what I made. $150,000. Now think about it. My signing bonus was a forgivable loan, supposedly. When I got traded to the Colts, they made me pay back my signing bonus to them. I had to give them their $600,000 back.
Wow.
Yeah, I was so pissed. Because, man, I try to be a man of my word. I'm like, you, I'll give you your money back. You know, even though I know I earned that money,
right.
I gave them that money back. I gave them $600,000 back. But yet, I was this malcontent. I was a bad guy. I'm about the money. It wasn't about the money. It was about doing right. Because I looked at, because you look at contract. Look at John Edwards. John Edwards was making $1 million, $800,000. I was making $150,000. I mean, I was doing everything. And I'm like, but yet I was, man, I got so many letters, you so I just play for free and all that kind of stuff. I mean, you don't forget that kind of stuff.
Right.
That stuff is hurtful.
What's up? Geek Tony in the place to be. Got Kicked Out Your Mama's University, creator and executive producer of Fat Tuesdays, an air hip-hop comedy. But right now, I'm rolling with Roland Martin, unfiltered, uncut, unplugged, and undamn believable. You hear me?
All right, I would like to introduce my panel now. I have Robert Patillo, host of People's Passion Politics, News and Talk, 1380 AM, WAOK in Atlanta, Georgia. I have Rebecca Carruthers, Vice President of Fair Election Center in Washington, D.C., and A. Scott Bolden, News Nation political contributor and former chairman of the National Bar Association and D.C. Chamber of Commerce's PAC, also in Washington, D.C. Scott, I'll start with you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Counsel, these cases, once they're sent back, take quite a while to make their way back to that federal district court or court of appeals that struck down the reapportionment piece. Can you talk about or walk us through what happens next vis-a-vis the state legislature? I know they have to do it again, but how does it get back to the federal district court or the federal circuit court to be approved? Or I guess the better question is, does it have to go back to the federal circuit or federal district court in Mississippi to get approved ultimately?
Yes, so the process will be, and as I mentioned earlier in the segment, we still have to work through what that specific timeline will be. We have advocated for a more expedited timeline, and the court has indicated a desire to have that type of expedited timeline, but that still has yet to be determined. But what happens next is that once that timeline has been set, the Mississippi Legislature will have to go back into session to redraw the districts that the court has determined violate the Voting Rights Act, and specifically Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act. And the legislature gets the first bite at the apple. So what that means is that the legislature will have the opportunity to follow the directions of the court and to do what it has now been tasked to do, which is to draw 3 new Black majority districts. There, of course, will have to be some changes and tweaks and modifications to the districts surrounding them in order to comply with the court's order. But again, the legislature will have that first opportunity to do so. The decision also indicates and requires of the parties in the case to have ready and submit remedial maps as well in the event that the legislature does not engage in the process that the court has asked it to do. So we will be positioned and ready to engage in that kind of advocacy should the legislature not follow the directive of the court.
But ultimately, the court, the federal court or the federal circuit has to approve this in order for it to be implemented. Whatever they approve, it's not up to the legislature, right?
Yes, that is correct. Again, the court wants to make sure that this new map that gets put into place is one that is in compliance with the Voting Rights Act. Again, the court has indicated a desire for this process to move quickly. And so it is our hope that once the legislature engages in the process that it has now been tasked with, that the court will, move in that same speed that it has indicated and asked for in approving the map. But of course, we want to make sure that it is a map that does what it is supposed to do.
Rebecca, your question.
Thank you so much for being here, Jennifer. A few months ago, I had a chance to talk to Charles Taylor over at Mississippi NAACP. We were talking about some of the larger shenanigans that the Mississippi Legislature has been up to this past session, especially in its anti-Blackness, such as the white zone in downtown Jackson, having a separate judiciary, having separate policing in that area. So I do not wait with bated breath thinking that the Mississippi Legislature is all of a sudden going to do right by Black folks in Mississippi. They've proven that they will not, won't, and will not, right? So my question is, do you all anticipate that Governor Tate Reeves is going to pursue this to the Supreme Court, especially in light with what we saw with the South Carolina case?
Well, we haven't gotten any indication one way or the other whether that will be the case. It would be our hope that given the decision of the court, this is a 119-page opinion that is very clear in our view in the decision-making of the court, the evidence and the facts that the plaintiffs put on in this case that support the court's decision. And so it would be our hope that there is not any appeal given the extensive amount of effort that the court engaged in to indicate why it made the decision that it made. So at this stage, it is very early because the opinion was issued yesterday by the court. But again, we don't have any indication one way or the other whether the governor will want to appeal this litigation.
Robert?
Thank you for all the work that you do, and particularly all the work that the Lawyers Committee does also. For years, while I was with the Rainbow Post Coalition, we were always hand in hand with the Lawyers Committee, fighting many of these battles. We're living in a post-Shelby v. Holder world, but Project 2025 has made it clear that they want to put the final death knell, not just in the Voting Rights Act of 1965, but in the Civil Rights Act of 64, fair housing, public accommodation, etc. Can you kind of explain to people who might not understand what it will mean if they fully get rid of the Voting Rights Act of 1965, particularly when it comes to situations such as what's going on in Mississippi?
Yes, and this is a very important question because, as you mentioned, many of the kind of foundational and fundamental pieces of the Voting Rights Act have been struck down by the courts. And without particularly in this instance now that Section 5 has been weakened, as you mentioned, by Shelby versus Holder, and no longer having any type of coverage formula in place for any type of preclearance to occur. If we were to lose Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act, which is, kind of one of the remaining pieces left of the Voting Rights Act, it will make it very difficult to be able to challenge discrimination that happens in the future. The Voting Rights Act and Section 2 in particular is designed and intended to address discrimination against particularly minority voters in the political process and how it affects the ability for those minority communities to be able to elect the candidates of their choice. So without having that kind of federal legislation in place, and in light of the Alexander versus South Carolina case that addresses racial gerrymandering claims under the U.S. Constitution, it really would really weaken the ability for any type of forward movement in the courts in terms of making sure that jurisdictions do not discriminate against Black voters or other voters of color in the processes of voting, and redistricting is one of those processes. And if that were to occur, it will require a lot of grassroots advocacy and effort in order to be able to elect candidates that will best meet the needs of Black voters in the future.
Jennifer, one of the questions I'm wondering is that, again, as I talked about in the first segment, the need to celebrate these victories. If there are people who are watching tonight and have heard our questions and your incredible answers to these questions and really want to get started where they are, what are some of the beginning steps for people who are starting to anticipate what's already going on in their states or already dealing with what's been right in front of them by these activists, minded governments and mayors and other people who want to take away our ability to vote and have proper representation?
Absolutely. So I think one of the most important things is for folks to really be able to get engaged. As I mentioned earlier, one of the highlights of this case is that the court really was able to learn about the issues that matter to Black voters. And civic engagement and participation is incredibly important. It's the way that we are able to advocate for the issues that matter to us as a community. And it also gives us an opportunity to hold our elected officials accountable. So we would certainly encourage folks to get engaged in their. We would encourage folks to engage in their local communities. There are state coalitions virtually in every state that are engaging in various kinds of advocacy, whether it's policy advocacy at the state capitol, it may be at the local level. But we really, really would encourage folks to participate. Of course, we would encourage folks to vote. It's very important to have a plan to vote. In Mississippi, there is a growing issue around voter registration. And as we are going forward into the November 2024 election cycle, we would strongly encourage voters folks all across the country to make sure that they are registered to vote. If they are registered to vote, make sure their registration is updated so that they are not or have already been removed from the voting rolls or would not be an inactive voter. We would certainly encourage you to have a plan when you go vote, engage in research, but also make sure that you have transportation and all of the logistical pieces in place in order for you to be able to cast your ballot and have it count. Of course, the Lawyers Committee is the National Election Protection Coalition lead, and we operate, along with our coalition partners, the National Election Protection Hotline. So we certainly would encourage folks to call the hotline at 866-OUR-VOTE with any questions or concerns that you have about your participation in the voting process. No question is too small. Even if your question is, am I registered to vote, or where do I need to go vote? There are live volunteers who will be able to answer your questions. And we want to make sure that voters have that education about, again, not just who is running, but also the logistics, because there are a lot of rules when it comes to how to be able to vote. And so the Election Protection Coalition and the volunteers that work with the hotline are prepared and ready to answer folks' questions about the process of voting.
Yes, 866-OUR-VOTE. Jennifer Nwachukwu, thank you so much for all of the work that you and all of your colleagues are doing, and we wish you continued success. Please keep us posted.
Will do. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.
All right. This is Roland Martin, Unfiltered on the Black Star Network, and we will be right back.
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds. As an angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol, we're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, guys.
This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear.
Talk about blackness and what happens in black culture. We're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it.
This is about covering us.
Invest in black-owned media.
Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks.
We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible.
Checks and money orders go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is RolandS.Martin.com.
On the next Get Wealthy with me, Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, you see the headlines. All frightening, right? Interest rates are going up. The recession is on the way. The stock market is up and down. But you know what they say, scared money don't make money. That's why I'm excited on our next Get Wealthy to have a conversation with someone who has written a new book, Fearless Finances, and she's going to share exactly what you need to do to secure your bag regardless of the ups and downs of the economy or the stock market.
Oftentimes you can start with as little as $5.
That's right here, only on Get Wealthy on Black Star Network.
Next on the Black Table with me, Greg Carr. Dr. Gerald Horne, a man regarded by many as the most important historian of our time. He provides us a history lesson I'm betting you've never heard before.
Texas enslavers who planned to continue the conflict even after Appomattox, even after the formal surrender of Robert E. Lee.
Dr. Horne talks about his new book, The Counter-Revolution of 1836, Texas, Slavery, and Jim Crow, and the Roots of U.S. Fascism. You do not want to miss this conversation. Only on the Black Table, right here on the Black Star Network.
On A Balanced Life, it takes a village to raise a child, and truer words have never been spoken. If you're raising a child, you know that it's a blessed challenge like no other. Even more so if your child has a disability. We'll talk to parents and our expert panelists about the best way forward for your child to help you maintain your own sanity on A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie on Black Star Network.
Coming soon to the Black Star Network.
I still have my NFL contract in my house, having a case. It's 4 of them, for my 4-year contract. I got a $600,000 signing bonus. My base salary for that first year was $150,000. Matter of fact,
$150,000.
$150,000. That's what I made, $150,000. Now think about it. My signing bonus was a forgivable loan, supposedly. When I got traded to the Colts, they made me pay back my signing bonus to them. I had to give them their $600,000 back.
Wow.
Yeah, I was so pissed. Because, I try to be a man of my word. I'm like, you, I'll give you your money back. Even though I know I earned that money, I gave them their money back. I gave them $600,000 back. But yet, I was this malcontent. I was a bad guy. I'm about the money. It wasn't about the money. It was about doing right. Because I looked at, because you look at contract. Look at John Elway. John Elway was making $1 million, $800,000. I was making $150,000. I was doing everything. And I'm like, but yet I was, I got so many letters, so I just play for free and all that kind of stuff. You don't forget that kind of stuff.
Right.
That stuff is hurtful.
Hey, what's up, y'all? I'm Devon Franklin. It is always a pleasure to be in the house. You are watching Roland Martin Unfiltered. Stay right here.
Since the presidential debate, panic about Joe Biden's ability to win has been in overdrive. While some have voiced their opinions about Biden withdrawing from the race, many are supporting the president and stepping up to ensure his continued presence in the White House. The Allegheny County Democratic Black Caucus has launched Brothas For Biden. I just love that. William Anderson, the organization's chair, joins us to discuss how they are helping keep Biden in the White House. Bro, yeah, I woke up this morning and people are still talking about this debate and him stepping out as if it was Friday morning after last week's debate. Can you talk about what you all have seen up in Allegheny County that has led you all to decide to launch this organization and campaign process?
Well, I just, first let me thank you for having me on. So I just think that it's time that, African-American men across this country paint their own narrative, right? And make decisions for ourselves on who is best for us and what direction we believe this country needs to go. And we launched, Brothas For Biden. We're starting in Allegheny County, but, this is a nationwide push to make them understand that we're not falling for the foolery, right? And when people question me and about the debate and other things, I say to them, go look in the mirror, go in the bathroom, look in the mirror, and if you see a perfect person in the mirror that has no flaws, that their children are doing 100% perfect, everything, that they've never made a mistake in their lives, then that's the person that you need to vote for, and that you need to get people to vote for. So we're not falling for the foolery. We're not falling for the you gave us a one little check and put your name on it, and we believe that it came from you, and that's going to make us flush the lives of our children and the future of this country, down the toilet based on any one action where there are years of proof of support for our community. So.
Mm-hmm. Most definitely. And one of the reasons I'm so glad that you started this is because it seems like every election, people go into this conversation about how black men aren't supporting whoever the candidate is, whether it's Obama, whether it's Biden, whatever, and black men are going to do this, black men are going to do that. When Roland Martin says consistently on this show that black women are the #1 Democratic voting bloc and black men are #2, not like number 5, 6, 7, or 8. So is that part of your frustration as well? Like even outside of what people are talking about with Biden and Trump, this idea that black men are just going to sabotage every election?
Right. I mean, like, what haven't we been blamed for the downfall of anything in this country? And that's the purpose of this, so that we as black men around the country are able to say to the country and to the world that, no, this is not true. This is not the narrative. There are a lot of, positive, African-American men that are supporting this president and that are not going to be fooled by the foolery. We're not going for any gains. We're not going backwards. We're not having our rights further, taken away. Right. I'm a grandfather. Right. I have a 6-year-old granddaughter. I have a 5-month-old grandson. So I am concerned about the rights of my daughters. I have a 20-year-old that goes to Hampton University. So these are colleges, these are investments that have been made to make their lives easier. And my life as an African-American male, easier also, because I'm also a small business owner and I'm from the hood, right? I still live in the hood. I still operate my business in the hood. I talk to brothers in the hood all day long as I walk around with my Baden hair shirt on, people in the community, because I am approachable and I am available. So any questions that you have, any concerns, you bring it to me. That's what we're saying about, African-American men. We're painting our own picture. We're tired of people telling us, 1, what we need to do, and then 2, the way we need to do it, and then 3, what we're going to do. Mm-hmm. So if you know all of that, then where does our involvement come in? So that's why we're letting people know that across the board, as I'm the chief of staff for the Democratic National Committee of Black Caucus. I'm our chair, Virgie Rollins, who is the Black Caucus chair from Detroit, Michigan, is intentional on making sure that African-American men are represented in this, not only in this party, but in this country at all levels, and that our voice is able to be expressed. So this is a national launch with all of our, Democratic National Committee Black Caucuses around the country, because there are, African-American men that are involved, and we are positive and we are making decisions for ourselves. We're no longer allowing outsiders, on either side to tell us what is best for us. We're going to tell you, and we're going to show you by our vote and our turnout that, yes, we're going to make a positive difference and help to keep our country moving forward.
And so what are some of the programs, the steps, what are some of the things that Brothas For Biden are actually going to be engaging in to get the word out about your support for Biden?
Well, it's going to actually be a continuation of, what we've already been building, and our chair, Virgie Rollins, has already been building at the DNC, right? So we've already started up to this. So this isn't something that is just coming out around election time. We've already been working with constituencies around the country, having, African-American summits around the country in different regions, having regional summits, having a seat at the table, which is an event where we have African-American females do panels and invite people from that area to come in here and meet, people that they usually don't have connections or have access to. So we're opening up and letting people know we're a big tent party. So we're going to start these up, after our holidays and all that stuff. get through because, people have a lot to do, during these times. But we're every day on the ground. Every time we talk to someone, we are intentional about getting more people involved. Every time we talk to, African-American men, we have the same mindset. We just don't, have the best communication skills. So we are bridging these gaps, and we are bringing people to the community that are from the community, right? We're not bringing people that have never seen the community, never seen the hood, whether they're Black or an African-American person, right? We are bringing people that are from the community that know what's going on, the jitney drivers, the barber shops, the hair salons, the grocery stores, the senior centers, our summer pools, the picnics, and getting people engaged and getting them to understand that for the most part, it's your local government and your local participation that affects your everyday life. And for the most part, the president is not your problem. If you have a problem in your community, for the most part, these are local elected official offices. So we're going to get people to get engaged, everybody from the garbage man all the way up to the White House, because this is a top up thing that we're dealing with, because the people that are struggling are not at the top. So we cannot listen to those people and let them decide the future for us and our kids. This is a decision that is up to us, and history will tell who stood on the sidelines and who had, second thoughts. And like I told, one of my brothers I was talking to earlier that, we don't betray our friends, right? We don't, because a lot of people a month ago were in line for 4 hours to get into a Juneteenth celebration at the White House and patting the president on his back and taking pictures with him and stuff like that. So these type of people, I say, in my opinion, although we would like their vote and we like their support like that, but we need people that are steady, fast, and support and want to, bring back and save this country and help us move forward. We're not where we're at, right? We're far from where we need to be in the things that this country owes to us as African Americans, but we're not going to get it unless we have a united front and know what we want and put our demands on the table, right? Early and often, as my grandmother always said.
Most definitely. Well, Mr. Anderson, thank you so much. Wishing you continued success with that. This is William Anderson, Chair of Brothas For Biden. Wishing you continued success and look forward to hearing more about what you're going to be doing going into this election.
You all have my number. And tell Roland it was nice to see him. And they can reach us at Allegheny County DBC.org. So you can go to our website, or you can reach out to me directly at 412-628. 4199. Of course, you can go to joebaden.com, or you can go to you go to iwillvote.com and get any information from the DNC. And we invite you all to come to Chicago, as we have a lot of great things for the Black Caucus plan, for our people around the country, everybody from Florida to Texas to Georgia to Pennsylvania. We're all going to be there. So everybody come out and have a good time, because we have the most viewed events in 2020. And as I said, our chair, Virgie Rawlins, is doing an excellent job, as, she was a former Black Panther. So,
all right.
I'll leave it there. So we have fighters that's fighting for us. And I appreciate you all and thank you. And everybody, like I said, if somebody gives up on you, just question their own, friendship and loyalty to you from the beginning.
Yes, sir.
Because they're looking for a reason.
Thank you so much. We'll be checking out the work. You take care.
All right, thank you.
All right. Roland Martin Unfiltered will be right back here on the Black Star Network.
All right, thank you. You too.
On the next Get Wealthy with me, Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, you see the headlines. All frightening, right? Interest rates are going up. The recession is on the way. The stock market is up and down. But you know what they say, scared money don't make money. That's why I'm excited on our next Get Wealthy to have a conversation with someone who has written a new book, Fearless Finances, and she's going to share exactly what you need to do to secure your bag regardless of the ups and downs of the economy or the stock market.
Oftentimes you can start with as little as $5.
That's right here, only on Get Wealthy on Black Star Network.
Next on the Black Table with me, Greg Carr. Dr. Gerald Horne, a man regarded by many as the most important historian of our time. He provides us a history lesson I'm betting you've never heard before.
Texas enslavers who plan to continue the conflict even after Appomattox, even after the formal surrender of Robert E. Lee.
Dr. Horne talks about his new book, The Counter-Revolution of 1836, Texas, Slavery, and Jim Crow, and the Roots of U.S. Fascism. You do not want to miss this conversation. Only on the Black Table, right here on the Black Star Network.
Hello, we're the Critter Fixers. I'm Dr. Bernard Hodges.
And I'm Dr. Terrence Ferguson.
And you're tuned in to
Roland Martin Unfiltered.
And we are back on Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. I want to hop over to the panel. Yo, a brother's struggling now, just dealing with so much of this nonsense. Rebecca, I want to start with you. As the political strategist, as somebody who's been doing this forever, my philosophy when I look at Democratic strategists is that, or strategists in general, is that people are supposed to keep things in-house. The whole thing about not airing your dirty laundry and the like. Republicans, I see, fall in line. Democrats got to fall in love. But they keep all of their issues behind closed doors. What am I missing in what I'm seeing right now with all of these Democrats putting all of the business out on Front Street, even still almost a week after the debate?
Did you watch the live in studio coverage when we reacted?
I did. That's why I came to you. That's why I'm coming to you. Y'all were lit.
So here's the thing. The debate performance was bad. Here's also the other thing. It appears that especially when Biden showed up and showed out the next day, I think in North Carolina, and did a really great job at his campaign events, we have to have the real conversation. And especially Black America, this is the one place where we get to have this conversation. You know, is Biden going to be in our best interest? We always, for our survival, have to have that conversation. Is Biden showing cognitive decline? Is he sunsetting, meaning that in the evenings, like sometimes when Mama and Papa would go to bed after the evening news, it was because their cognitive decline. They needed to go to bed. They needed to reset and then wake up refreshed the next day. And for some people, that is what we're seeing. Part of the conversation that we started in studio last Thursday night was, can Biden be replaced on the ticket? Now, I know Roland has a difference of opinion, especially from the rest of the folks that were in studio last week. Like, technically, can Biden be replaced? Yes. Is it likely that Biden's going to be replaced on the ticket? It's unlikely, but can it still happen? Absolutely. We just saw Jim Zogby release a memo to the DNC talking about, hey, if Biden is replaced, here's the mechanism for how to do it. And then he leaked it to the New York Times. So we know there is a real conversation that's happening. And we do know that the Joe Biden that we have in 2024 is different than the Joe Biden in 2020. Full stop. I don't think anyone could credibly argue differently. But we also have to talk about the number two is Kamala Harris. We hear people talking about, hey, we need to replace Joe Biden. But it's also rare to hear some of those same people saying, hey, Kamala Harris should replace Joe Biden. Instead, we're seeing those Reuters polls that's highlighting Whitmer, even having Michelle Obama, having a bunch of other people, and then Harris is also included as like one of 8 possibilities. So, is the Democratic Party having a serious conversation about this? Yes. Do I think Black America need to be having this conversation too, because it's going to directly impact us? Absolutely, and we have to find a space to have a real conversation about. Why isn't the Democratic Party pushing out an alternative to Project 2025? Why isn't the leader of the party actually speaking more to Black specific issues? Like our last guest is an official part of the Democratic Party apparatus talking about Brothas For Biden. Great, but one thing that I wanted to hear him say, hey, here are the 5 Black policy agendas that we're pushing Biden on if he wants our continued support. So I think all of these things must be on the table, especially for Black America.
And Robert, you are just coming off of a campaign. How do you assess what's going on as it relates to these public displays of frustration as it relates to Biden? As somebody who was at the top of a campaign, how would you assess what's happening right now? How would you deal with it, number one, if you were Biden? And just two, what's your overall assessment on all of this pressure that's coming towards him?
Well, it's appropriate that we're in the month named for Julius Caesar, July, because Biden should be walking around saying, "Et tu, Brutus." This is very much a situation where this appears to be an inside hit job from the from the left wing of the Democratic Party to try to take Biden out before the convention. Very similar to what we saw with LBJ in '68 when they replaced him with Humphrey. The idea that he was polling, I think, around 31% at the time. They believed that because of Vietnam, he could not win re-election, and there was basically a coup inside of the party where they were able to force him out. That is what we're seeing taking place right now. R.E. Emanuel, Rahm Emanuel's brother, just gave a talk, an interview, where he said they are moving their money to congressional and to Senate campaigns. You are seeing a consecrated effort to remove a sitting president of the United States by his own party, and you're seeing the complacency and the complicit nature of our press and pushing that forward also. And I do not believe President Biden will step down. I do not believe he will go down without a fight. As a matter of fact, I think we all probably got an email in our inbox from Biden saying he's not stepping down while we were on this show tonight. So this is going to be an ugly fight in Chicago again. Because for some reason, whenever Democrats have a convention in Chicago, some malarkey like this is going to take place, and this is going to be a convention fight, legally speaking.
So wait a minute, Robert. You think that even if Biden says right now, I ain't dropping out, Wesley Snipes, if I'm going down, taking a whole lot of people with me, like, you feel like even if he says emphatically right now he's staying in, there's still going to be beef at the convention?
Absolutely. These people are not, look, you do not launch a coup against a president of your own party unless you were ready to fight it all the way out. As Omar said in The Wire, if you're going to take a shot at the king, you best not miss. And they do not plan on missing. And we're going to see a convention fight potentially over the Biden nomination. There are at least 3 and potentially 12 states where it may not even be legally possible to remove Biden from the ballot. Not to mention the fact that if you look at Trump, for example, Trump was convicted of 34 felonies a month ago, and we did not see anybody in conservative media calling on him to step out. He was found civilly liable for raping a woman. He's a rapist. According to a judge, no one called for him to drop out of the race. He had a $500 million judgment against him earlier this year for fraud, and nobody called for him to come out of the race. Biden shows up to the debate sleepy, and they're ready to throw granddaddy into a home and take away his keys. So I think we see it's very clear that this is coming from inside of the party, and it's going to be interesting to see who wins this power struggle, because that's very much going to determine not just the future of this election, but the future of the Democratic Party and this republic.
And Scott, I'm very interested in your take on this as well, but also I wanted to just add a little bit to this question to you. If you could also add a little bit as it relates to the legal ramifications of what we're looking at post the Supreme Court decision, because so many people are saying we have to, in the Democratic Party has to consolidate around Biden because now we got a guy who can come in and just break all types of laws. So what's your overall take on this, but also adding that legal perspective to it based on what just happened on Monday with the Supreme Court?
Well, maybe. I mean, I guess I agree with my colleagues, but, Democratic Party and Biden and the White House have to own this negative narrative against them. I'm a big believer in the but-for test. But for that horrific debate appearance by Biden, we wouldn't even be having this discussion. Man, let's be realistic. He was down by a couple of points before the debate performance. This issue of his mental acuity and age, fair or not, this is politics, right? And 50 million people saw him look old, feeble, and just really unable to counterpunch a coherent liar on the other side. Not so much his age and mental acuity, it's how it manifests itself at 81. And the issue isn't whether he can govern or continue to govern for another 4 years. The issue is, can he win this race one more time? And I don't know whether he can win or not. In 3 or 4 days, the reliable polls are going to come out. If he's down by 6, then it doesn't really look good. We're 4 months out from the organization. I think from the general election. I think these are fair discussions to have, whether he's capable of moving forward successfully, because it's not just Biden in the White House, it's down ballot, it's state races. And you're talking about a critical presidential race election year because of the Supreme Court decision. The Supreme Court decision wouldn't be so bad if it wasn't that Donald Trump, who has pledged retribution, who has pledged to prosecute his enemies, who attacked our democracy when he lost in 2020, and he's got a real shot at returning to the White House, that Supreme Court decision wouldn't be so threatening to Democrats, except that. Because really, we know no matter, official acts are official acts, can't be criminally prosecuted for that. Personal acts can't be, you can certainly be prosecuted for that, whether you're in the White House or not. That bucket, that middle bucket, whereby you've got to do a fact-finding hearing, and you can put an overlay of a official act on asking a DOJ or DOD official to commit a crime, and you can't be prosecuted for that. That's going to be long litigated and long debated. That's scary when you put Donald Trump in that mix, who is a convicted felon, who has been found liable for sexual abuse and has been found liable for financial fraud. And so the future of this country, the future of democracy is really at stake. And so it's fair to have this discussion about Biden and whether he can continue because of he brought this on himself. But more importantly, let me tell you what he brought on himself. By moving so slowly, they never got ahead of this negative story. They have moved so slow that now it's drip, drip, drip. Now you've got Democrats saying he should withdraw. You have Democrats saying he can't win. And the world is watching, not just Democrats and Americans, but the world is watching. And now he's doing his outreach and what have you. It may be too little too late because the story is going to dictate whether he stays or goes. And all they had to do is this, and I'll end on this point. You want Biden to overcome that bad performance? You want to say it's just a bad performance? Okay, then get him out there. Let him do a press conference, one-on-one interviews. Let him go on Fox News, quite frankly, and let him freestyle, as the young people say. And then that would overcome that bad performance. If you don't do that, and they haven't done that yet, and we're 5-6 days later, then you're hiding. And if you're hiding, we got a big problem because now you're lying to the American people. So listen, Biden's got to take responsibility not only for his poor performance, but how he's handled it afterwards. These are our realities, and the risks are too great. So I not only think it's a fair discussion to have about whether he stays on the ticket or not, but really a fair discussion as to who else can take his place if he steps down or if he is healthy enough or unhealthy in regard to taking on this enormous task of defeating Donald Trump. Because he was losing before the debate. Now 50 million people saw his age and mental issues on front and center. Right. It's a huge problem that you can't ignore.
No, I hear you. And I think that everybody should go back and watch the Roland Martin post-debate conversation because it definitely was lit. And a lot of things that were brought up there are still being talked about today and maybe talked about a week from now. Who knows?
Me, or was I on point with Roland or no? He didn't go that far as I did.
Got to go check it out. So look, Robert, I know you have to leave. I want to thank you for being with us tonight. And we are going to be back with a little bit more of this. Please, you're watching the Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. We'll be right back.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it.
This is about covering us.
Invest in black-owned media.
Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks.
We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible.
Checks and money orders go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
Hello, I'm Paula J. Parker. Truly proud on the Proud Family.
I am Tommy Davidson. I play Oscar on Proud Family, Louder and Proud.
Hi, I'm Jo Marie Payton, voice of Sugar Mama on Disney's Louder and Prouder, Disney Plus. And I'm with Roland Martin on Unfiltered.
A Black Louisiana family says they were wrongfully detained by cops looking for a suspect. Lafayette police swarmed the Kristoff family home on June 29th, looking for someone who did not fit the description or live at the house. According to their attorney, Darrell Washington, the officers refused to answer questions and placed handcuffs on the father and his daughter. He also said his clients were threatened with a canine dog. They were eventually released after the officers discovered who they were looking for was not in the home. Washington says his clients plan to sue the Lafayette Police Department, and Darrell is joining us right now. Thank you so much for joining us tonight with this terrible story. First question I have, could you just update us on how the family is doing?
It's the family is traumatized. I'll be honest with you. I cannot minimize it at all because the family know how lucky they are to be alive, because we have seen so many situations where police officers have gone to the wrong home and someone end up dead. So, you know, the family has thought about that their entire time. But I will tell you, man, just for the father, it's just been extra difficult seeing his daughter in handcuffs, seeing his 10-year-old son have to witness all of that, and watching his wife be escorted out of the house with guns pointed at them. So you can imagine as a father knowing that you was in a helpless position, not being able to protect your family. That's something that's just really been bothering him really bad.
Yes, as a father of three and your two daughters, myself, I and a son as well, I definitely, this just is gut-wrenching on so many levels. How have the police tried to explain this?
They haven't, to be quite honest with you, and it's been very disappointing because we've said the entire time we are not very difficult to find. They have not actually issued a statement that I'm aware of, even trying to justify their actions. But here's what we know. The descriptions that they had of the individual that they were searching for did not match Jeremy. The clothing that the person was wearing did not match the clothing that Jeremy was wearing. So they knew this right off. But despite knowing this, as you know, Black people in America just aren't safe. They view us as criminals, unfortunately. And although they knew that Jeremy did not match the description of the person that they were looking for, they felt that they were justified in treating this family in this manner. And because this has been so bad, the Lafayette Police Department has not publicly responded to it. But you and I both know, had there not been video footage of this incident, the narrative of what actually happened would be totally different.
Absolutely. Well, one of my concerns is that I feel like even with the police footage, we have seen in so many cases that people have still tried, and police departments have still tried to switch the narratives. Do you feel like this is conclusive enough in what we're seeing, that the evidence is solid enough to really be able to go forward and hold them accountable, particularly since they're not saying anything to you right now?
The evidence is very solid. There's no doubt that these officers were made aware that they were not at the proper home. They seized my family, which would be a violation under the 14th Amendment. They had an obligation to talk to the family. They had an obligation to just answer questions. Had they just been courteous to the family, answered some questions, then we wouldn't be here right now today. They just simply refused to do this. The part that was just very difficult to watch was when they actually threatened to release this canine dog into Jeremy's home and have this dog attack the family. So if they were willing to do that, You know that had Jeremy or anyone in the family just made any type of wrong move, they were just waiting to shoot one of them. And here's something else that we've discovered. This is not an isolated incident. I've been getting calls from individuals from Lafayette, Louisiana, who have been telling me about similar stories. They're telling me how they've been treated by police officers within that city. So the one thing that we are encouraging people to do, talk about this situation. If you have been victimized by somebody from the Lafayette Police Department, let us know, because what we want to do is we want to be able to argue that this is not an isolated incident. This is the custom and practice of the Lafayette Police Department. This is systemic. This is something that's been taking place for quite some time. Individuals have been harmed as a result of the wrongful actions of Lafayette Police Department. I just talked to a family where a young kid, I think 18 months, was killed by a Lafayette police officer when they fired into her home. So there's just been things that I'm learning about this force that is very problematic. And the one thing that we want to do is we want to bring about change.
Rebecca, your question for Mr. Washington.
Mr. Washington, I was listening to what you were saying about how this police department, or just when we see these instances in general, that they don't really see us. It makes me think that they still think that we're 3/5 human. Because, you know, even in the United States, there was an argument that we're not even full human. It wasn't just that for every 5 Black folks, they only counted 3. They literally said we're only 60% human. And that appears to be how they're still treating us now. And I'm also thinking about Lafayette, because I used to live in Louisiana. And I still remember how Lafayette had segregated proms, if I remember. So it's not just a police department issue, but it is a community issue in Lafayette. And so when Omekongo was asking what excuse are they using, so I was just like, all right, so are they going to say that they misread the warrant, so they can't read because they didn't match the address? But now it sounds like they're trying to say, oh, well, maybe they're colorblind, or maybe they're blind because the description didn't match the people at the home. So my question for you is, especially with you highlighting that there are other issues going in Lafayette, what should Black families be doing now to protect themselves, understanding that we're going to have to go through a whole process of making this family whole, but then also investigating patterns of other behavior that's coming from this police department? What should Black families be doing right now?
First of all, people need to unify whenever there are these type of incidents. There are other individuals who have been victimized by the Lafayette Police Department. It's very important that they come forward, because these police officers and departments are accustomed to mishandling people, mistreating people, and saying, oops, I made a mistake, and it's all over again. People don't do anything about it because they don't think nothing could be done about it. It's just the total opposite. We need people to report these incidents. We need people to come forward. Even if you haven't been victimized by the Lafayette Police Department, it is important that you come forward, because the support that you give into someone else is the support that you give into your own home. I know you guys had a very good discussion about the election. And, you know, I also always want to bring the election into the type of work we do as civil rights attorneys. I want people to know the seriousness of this. If we allow Donald Trump to get elected as president, civil rights are going to be in total jeopardy. I will tell you, some of these judges, federal judges who have been appointed by Donald Trump, when we go into their courts, when we're dealing with any type of officer-involved incident, it is extra tough, because a lot of these judges are pushing the agenda of Donald Trump. They understand and they realize that if they do the things that he wants them to do, the things that are exciting to him, then it makes it so much easier for them to move up in their career. So people don't understand, we're only talking about one aspect of the election. But we have to know that we cannot allow this guy to make these judicial appointments, because this is going to have an everlasting impact on our communities. And we cannot allow police officers to know that they're going to be automatically receiving qualified immunity no matter how they treat people. We don't want this to happen. This is dangerous.
Scott, your question.
Yeah. Hey, Counsel. Good evening. Thank you for being here. I may have missed it, but what's the police department as to why they chose this particular family? That is, in the video, you can see they've got some shotguns and they're walking towards the house. They've got a police dog. So they're certainly looking for somebody who they believe to be very dangerous, right? So what is their narrative as to why they chose this family? And secondly, are you going to wait to file the civil lawsuit while this investigation goes on, or are you going to file it sooner than later?
Scott, we look in great question, Scott. One of the things, and as you know, when we're dealing with these cases, in order to survive Monell, we have to be able to have the facts to show that this is not really an isolated incident. So one of the things I want to be able to do is I want to be able to get as many other prior incidents as possible so that I can show that there's a training issue within the Lafayette Police Department that makes it much easier for me to survive that 12B6 motion to dismiss. So although, people get pretty anxious about getting these lawsuits filed, I understand when we're dealing in federal court, especially in Louisiana, we have to make sure that we have enough of facts, enough of support in these complaints where they're not coming back and saying it's just conclusory. As to your very first question, they have not been able to give any justification as to why they made the decision to stop at this house and harass this particular family. Because one thing I can tell you, from the clothing, from the description of the individual that they was looking for, nobody at that home matched that description. But these officers, as you know, we deal with this all the time when you talk about pretextual stops. They use any type of incident, any type of opportunity that they can get to deal or harass Black people with the hopes that they're going to find something. And that's what we had right now. They knew they were at the wrong place. They knew that Jeremy and his family did not match the description. And look at what is so disgusting about this whole situation. They were looking or allegedly for a Black male. So what was the purpose of putting Jeremy's daughter in handcuffs? Clearly, she didn't match the description of the Black male that they were looking for.
That's a really bad fact for the police, in my opinion. Because let me tell you something. That was to emasculate her father.
That's right.
That was to emasculate her father, and the psychological damage to that young girl at her age, whatever age she was, being in handcuffs, watching her dad be in handcuffs at their home, right? Not only violated in my opinion, the Fourth Amendment and the 14th Amendment, but also the psychological damage of emasculating that Black man in his home in front of his family. Certainly requires damages, in my opinion. And I know you're going to put that together for the civil suit. I know you got that covered.
And Mr. Washington, before you answer that question, I want to just read something that kind of speaks to the challenges within this police department. I'm going back to, and you know about this, February 3rd, 2021, deputy who died by suicide left haunting videos on racist policing division saying that he's had enough. Just really reading real quickly from part of it. Before Deputy Clyde Kerr III took his own life Monday outside the Lafayette Parish Sheriff's Office, he left haunting final words in a series of social media videos. Kerr, a father and military veteran, was 43 years old. And he talked about so many issues from police brutality against Black people that you just talked about, mental health needs, children's exposure to murder, violence, and other negative traumatic influences. So we're talking about this outside issue that the civilians are dealing with. And this brother who took his own life in 2021 documented on video the internal issues as it relates to being a Black man in that department.
Yes, and I remember that. I remember that story so vividly. I mean, this brother got on and he explained the things. He even explained the problems that Black police officers have within these departments. And people try to say, well, this guy had mental issues or whatever. This guy let everyone know that there are problems in Lafayette Parish, and people ignored it. But luckily in this case here, the family lived to tell their story. Luckily, the father was smart enough to take his camera out and record what was going on, because you and I both know that had there not been any type of video footage, Had they known that this family was not protecting themselves, the narrative would be totally different today.
So you are absolutely right. And what do you want us to be doing going forward as it relates to this? This is clearly not a story that's making it on some of these other networks. What is it that you want us to do going forward as it relates to raising awareness about this? Not just us as the Black Star Network, but the viewers as well.
Great point. I mean, the thing that we have to do is we have to continue to talk about these stories. And you have to continue to let these be conversations. But I always, and I know Scott's going to relate to this as well, I always tell people in the African-American community, we have an obligation as well to make changes. I can't tell you the number of times that we've prepared 1, 2, 3 years for trial, and we getting into these courtrooms, and we're about to select a jury, and we look out in that jury pool, and there's people who look just like us. And when they go through voir dire, they allow these attorneys to get them to eliminate themselves from serving on juries. We need to be able to serve on these juries. We need diverse juries in order to make a change, because oftentimes we go in cities like Lafayette and these other areas where individuals are pro-police. So it's important when we are able to get past summary judgment and get these cases to trial that the community also take care of their obligation, and that one of their main obligations is serving on these juries.
I really appreciate you ending on that, because one of the main challenges to fixing this system is our civic engagement as well. And so you're charged to that. You're charged to people within the community to speak up. Like you said, even if they're not dealing with a particular case, things that they're witnessing, we have to be able to continue to speak up as well as getting engaged as well. Mr. Washington, please, first of all, give our best to the family, and please keep us informed anytime you have some news information about this, so we can make sure that the Black Star Network family knows about this as well. Thank you so much for coming on tonight.
No, thank all you guys for this discussion, man. It's been very good. And, I always enjoy listening to you guys discuss the issue. So thank y'all very much.
Thank you. You take care.
All right, take care.
You're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network, and we will be right back.
Fanbase is pioneering a new era of social media for the creator economy. This next generation social media app with over 600,000 users is raising $17 million, and now is your chance to invest. For details on how to invest, visit startengine.com/fanbase or scan the QR code. Another way we're giving you the freedom to be you without limits.
On the next Get Wealthy with me, Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, you see the headlines. All frightening, right? Interest rates are going up. The recession is on the way. The stock market is up and down. But you know what they say, scared money don't make money. That's why I'm excited on our next Get Wealthy to have a conversation with someone who has written a new book, Fearless Finances, and she's going to share exactly what you need to do to secure your bag regardless of the ups and downs of the economy or the stock market.
Oftentimes you can start with as little as $5.
That's right here, only on Get Wealthy on Black Star Network.
Hey, what's up? It's Sammy Roman.
Hey, it's John Murray, the executive producer of the new Sherry Shepherd Talk Show.
It's me, Sherry Shepherd, and you know what you're watching, Roland Martin Unfiltered.
On June 28th, police in upstate New York tackled and then shot a 13-year-old boy to death after he pointed what turned out to be a BB gun at officers during a foot chase. Utica officials released body camera footage of the incident that led to Nyamwe's death. Nya and another 13-year-old boy were stopped because they matched descriptions of robbery suspects. The video you are about to see is disturbing and may be triggering.
The reason why we're stopping, keep your hands out of your pockets. The reason why we're stopping is you're riding in the roadway and you're walking.
Oh shit, I forgot about that.
What do you mean you forgot about that?
Like he was just having fun. Like he was living over there.
Yeah. Can I just pat you down and make sure you got no weapons on you? got one running. Eastbound. He's racing for his way.
What the fuck did he shoot?
Back up, back up, back up.
He's got shots fired.
Got shots fired.
Let me see.
Go right there, go right there.
Up in the cross street. We need to block those off.
Hey, give me a light here. Give me a light here.
And 900 block of shot needs to be closed off.
You're good, man.
Yeah, first guy that's blocking the road off.
I need.
May has been identified as the officer who shot the teen. He and two other officers involved in the chase, Bryce Patterson and Andrew Citrinity, have been placed on paid leave. The Utica Police Department has started an internal investigation, and the New York State Attorney General's office has started its own. Nia and his family moved to Utica 8 years ago after escaping civil unrest in Myanmar and spending time in a refugee camp in Thailand. In Dayton, Ohio, the investigation into the death of 16-year-old Brian Moody continues. Bodycam footage from the June 29th incident shows what happened right up until the officers began shooting.
Come here, talk to me real quick. That's me, all right. Come here, talk to me. You're getting shot, dude. You're getting shot. Hold on. Sure. How we doing?
Both officers shot at Moody, firing a total of 8 times. The teen was hit once in the left shoulder and suffered internal injuries. Moody was taken to a local hospital where he died. It has not been released why the officers wanted to talk to Moody. Officers say they shot the teen because he had a gun. As you saw, it's hard to see in the video, but they did reportedly find a weapon. And Scott, it's deja vu all over again. It seems like every day there's another story, and sadly, most of the stories that are happening don't even make it to the news. And today we are seeing, once again, the victims are younger and younger, and it also ties back to our story from the last segment as well, where thankfully that family survived.
Yeah, both of those videos, both of those cases, in my opinion, violate a Supreme Court decision that is still good law called Tennessee v. Garner, that the police, under color of law, cannot shoot or use deadly force against a nonviolent fleeing felon. You say, well, in both cases, they found a gun. But in both of those cases, from the video, based on what I saw, you didn't see, at least it wasn't clear to me, that you didn't see them doing anything with these weapons. Now, in the first video with the kid from Miramar, if he brandished a weapon and pointed it at the police, then that's going to be a justified shooting. On the second one, that 16-year-old just started running. It wasn't clear whether the police were there to talk to him or not. If they were there to talk to him, the fact that he ran doesn't mean they can use deadly force. And then they used deadly force, and who knows, then they found a gun. Even if they found a gun, it's still an unlawful shooting, because if he wasn't using the gun to commit a crime or to threaten the police, the life of the police, then why are you even chasing him? What do you want to talk to him about? And why are you using deadly force because he's running? It's nonsensical. It boggles the mind as to these officers and their training and why they think if they've got a runner, they can use deadly force. And by the way, why didn't they just use a taser to stop him? I mean, it just makes no sense. And this is why I say the police, it's beyond that the police think we're criminals. They don't believe that we're human. Because if you believed I was a human being, right, and you believe in my human life, then you would give me every consideration whether I'm breaking the law or not, or you're using deadly force, which, by the way, is the definition for most police departments as to why you're using deadly force to protect yourself or the life of others. In neither one of those cases, in my opinion, other than maybe the first one, nobody's life was in danger. It was just a chase. So very disappointing. But until white America and law enforcement sees black men and women as human beings, these shootings are going to continue to take place. And by the way, the police are aware of video. They have body cameras. They had citizens have Apple phones. They know they're being videotaped. They know they're violating department rules, and they still keep doing it. So it's in the training, or they're just ignorant and stupid, and they don't see us as human beings.
Well, Rebecca, that kind of ties back to what we were talking about in the last segment. You specifically brought up the 3/5 of a man clause, and this mindset we're seeing. Some people are saying, as Scott's saying, that the training is not working, but Rebecca, some would argue they're doing exactly what they're trained to do.
Yeah, let's go back and let's pull the thread in that 3/5. It's specifically, they're saying that we're not full human. But let's take it another step. They're saying that we're subhuman. That was the point of chattel slavery, is that we're subhuman. We're barely above beast. And we might be neck and neck with beasts. That's exactly how we are viewed in this country. I would even argue that the Dred Scott decision, even though most attorneys would tell you the 13th, the 14th Amendment did away with that, I would argue that it did not. It dealt with the issue of standing, but one reason why Dred Scott didn't have standing is because he was a subhuman. So we got to be very clear with what we're fighting and what we're up against. I would say with the first case that you just highlighted in New York, I think for some of our non-white new immigrants to this country, it is a rude awakening for them to understand how white supremacy works in this country. The United States ships and exports out white supremacy around the world. But when you're inside this country and you're dealing with white supremacy firsthand, it shows up differently. Never in their wildest imagination, fleeing from Myanmar, would that family have ever thought that they were going to have a member of their family gunned and extrajudiciously killed by law enforcement in this country. I bet when they even heard stories of post-Trayvon or even George Floyd, that they may not really understood what they were viewing, what they were seeing, or even how to interpret it. So to be clear to our viewing audience and to our friends who are new to this country, be clear, if you are not white by American standards in this country, you are a target. Listen to your black friends, especially your black friends whose families have been here hundreds of years. It is not safe for us. It is not going to be safe for you. We're going to have to figure this thing out because it's beyond just police departments, but it's even baked into the American system. Racism and white supremacy is what is American as apple pie. Not the actual apple, but it's this white supremacy, and that is the final challenge that we're going to have to deal with. The reason why Roland has his book, White Fear, the reason why we're dealing with Project 2025 isn't because these Klan folks are anybody new or that these are new concepts. It's because generation after generation, we're still fighting that same fight from hundreds of years ago. And until we actually have resolution on this fight, we will constantly see these things that we're talking about right now.
So, Scott, what do you see as some of the steps as it relates to the way forward? Because I remember when people were applauding, the rule that said, all cops have to wear body cams. That hasn't seemed to work. Some things get caught on body cams. Police officers still get off. Some officers forget to turn on their body cams. People talked about, we try to go against qualified immunity and have not been successful with that. What are some things that need to be happening going forward so we can start getting a deeper level of accountability with these officers?
A couple things. One, who are we hiring to and giving them a gun and a badge? Who are we giving a gun and a badge to on the color of law with the American flag on their uniform, and they are using deadly force against black and brown people? That's first thing. Two, are we giving them a psychological test to determine why they're a police officer and whether they have the mental capacity to use judgment and make split-second decisions. There are tests that determine whether you're more racist or not, or more likely to be racist or not, based on your view of black people, brown people, poor people. Are we giving all of these police departments those same tests around the country? We're not. And by the way, we must have 7,500 police departments in the U.S. That's way too much. You could consolidate, you could reduce, and have a national testing score, testing standard that all police officers, state, county, local, or federal, have to be trained by, including the test that I just mentioned. And then lastly, we've got to put a fight in and fight at the local and state level against the police unions who have these effective lobbying shops who protect them at the state legislature level, whereby you cannot affect their pension or their compensation based on police misconduct. You need a national repository of bad cops who have lost their jobs, who can go to other departments in other counties and other states and get jobs. But then lastly, you've got to, if you are engaged in misconduct, police brutality, unlawful shootings of black and brown men, or anyone, right? That ought to affect your pension. That ought to affect your ability to generate income as a police officer. It ought to affect your weekly pay or monthly pay. Until we make those changes nationwide, we're just talking about police reform. Because if you get serious about police reform, then those are the reforms that need to be put in place, because too many black men and brown men and women are dying. And so until we make those changes, the killing fields of urban America and even rural America are going to continue. I have no problem saying that to you. The killing fields will continue at the hands of police officers.
And so, Rebecca, I got to pull out the political strategist in you and tie this to what we've been talking about earlier. My concern with going into 2024, I'm seeing so many police and police unions that are endorsing Trump. I've seen some meet him at his airplanes when he's getting off, and given what the Supreme Court is doing, my concern is that going into 2024, if Trump gets in, everything that Scott is saying needs to happen, there's not even a chance of that happening. As a matter of fact, these police officers might be more emboldened and feel even more deputized beyond their badge to do more of what we're seeing right now. So these cases that are already happening in way too many instances, it might just be the beginning if we don't get our act together for November. How do you see it?
So I'm thinking about the Supreme Court's rulings in the last few weeks, where we learned that officials in their government capacity, they can receive tips for official things that they do in that capacity, right? And then I think about now learning that the president is above the law. The president is king now. And then hearing, one particular candidate talking about, he's going to get rid of, he's going to have full immunity for law enforcement, right? So we're hearing all these things, and I make it no secret at all who was on either side of the ticket aren't my number one, number two, number three, number four, number five. I can keep counting, but we only have so much time. Are my top picks for nominees of each party, right? But what I understand is going into November, the decision is about one government versus another government. I know in the current government, we see that this Justice Department is actually going through state by state, city by city, and they're providing accountability for law enforcement who are committing crimes. Versus under the previous administration, that thing wasn't happening. So I think for any voter going into November, you have to compare and contrast that you're voting for a particular government. It doesn't matter. And I get, for a lot of people, the top of the ticket is not what's engaging, but you're still voting for a government. So you have to choose which government, which worldview of that particular government is in the best interest of you, your family, and your community. That's what people are going to have to really figure out. So as a political strategist, one thing that I am encouraging people is talk about the choice between those two governments. Let's not get caught in dogs versus cats, but let's actually talk about what it means to be under this particular type of government. Is that a good thing for you, or is that a bad thing for you? And that's how I'm encouraging people to approach their voting this fall.
You both provide really incredible solutions about what needs to go forward, and I really hope that people are paying attention to it, because it's just a matter of time before it hits someone in our community, and we've already known too many stories of loved ones that it has already hit. So this is very personal for all of us, and all of us watching the Black Star Network. So we're going to keep our eye on these stories as well, and the others that are unfortunately to come. Thank you for that. Roland Martin Unfiltered will be right back, right here on the Black Star Network.
Coming soon to the Black Star Network.
I still have my NFL contract in my house, having a case. It's 4 of them, for my 4-year contract. I got a $600,000 signing bonus. My base salary for that first year was $150,000. Matter of fact,
$150,000.
$150,000. That's what I made, $150,000. Now think about it. My signing bonus was a forgivable loan, supposedly. When I got traded to the Colts, they made me pay back my signing bonus to them. I had to give them their $600,000 back.
Wow.
Yeah, I was so pissed. Because, I try to be a man of my word. I'm like, you, I'll give you your money back. Even though I know I earned that money, I gave them their money back. I gave them $600,000 back. But yet, I was this malcontent. I was a bad guy. I'm about the money. It wasn't about the money. It was about doing right. Because I looked at, because you look at contract. Look at John Elway. John Elway was making $1 million, $800,000. I was making $150,000. I was doing everything. And I'm like, but yet I was, I got so many letters, so I just play for free and all that kind of stuff. You don't forget that kind of stuff.
Right.
That stuff is hurtful.
Bruce Smith, creator and executive producer of the Proud Family, Louder and Prouder, and you're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
Tani Arlene has been missing from Newport News, Virginia since June 4th, 2024. The 13-year-old is 5 feet 2 inches, weighs 170 pounds, with black hair and brown eyes. Anyone with information about Tani Arlene should call the Newport News, Virginia Police Department at 757-247-2500. A former D.C. corrections officer will spend more than 3 years behind bars for assaulting a handcuffed inmate in 2019. 28-year-old Marcus Bias pleaded guilty in March to violently ramming an inmate's head into a metal door frame while the victim had his hands behind his back. U.S. Attorney for D.C. Matthew M. Graves said Bias neglected his responsibility as an officer when he assaulted the restrained inmate who was suffering from the effects of pepper spray and was surrounded by 5 other officers and was not resisting. After Bias served 42 months in prison, he'll be on supervised release for 24 months. Scott, is this not deja vu all over again?
Well, I was just listening to your piece and I was thinking, why? Why? Pepper spray, he's handcuffed, there are 5 other correction officers there, and he assaults this guy. Why? What the defendant was having, was he having a bad day? Well, again, you don't have to be white to not believe that defendants, right, or arrestees aren't human, because environmentally, you can be taught that job. This isn't a black or white issue when it comes to law enforcement. It's a training issue. It's a mentality. Black police officers have abused me like white police officers have abused me when I've been stopped. And I got lots of experience. I'm 62 years old. And I'm an attorney. So it doesn't have to be white police officers, and I'm presuming this corrections officer is black, but it doesn't matter, black or white. Why? He going to give up 5 years of his life because he decided to assault a prisoner who'd been pepper sprayed. It just makes no sense. It gets back to the mentality of law enforcement and corrections officers. Who are we hiring? What are we training them? Right? And what is their value system as a human being? Who's taught them generational racism? Who's taught them to be that offensive and abusive to another human being, whether he's broken the law, whether he's a prisoner or not? This is the humanity. It's a human condition issue. And I just think you got to hire better, and you got to attack those bad actors as well as their supervisors where it affects them most, and that's the pocketbook and their pension. Until you do that, you're going to continue to see bad actors because they read the newspapers, they watch TV, they have lessons upon lessons upon lessons of police officers being prosecuted or caught or abusing Black and brown people, and they keep doing it. And they keep doing it all around the country, too. It's dumb. It's stupid, actually. But anyway, those are my comments. And I'm tired of covering this, too, by the way. We cover this. Think about it. I've been doing Roland Martin for 7 or 8 years. Every week, every 2 weeks or so, we have a story to report on this. Think about that. We have a story to report. That's a lot of killing and abuse. And we always have a story. We always can report on this. Roland could do his show and just report on this. Just report on this. It makes no sense whatsoever. I call it the killing fields of America at the hands of the police.
No, you're absolutely right.
All right, you can go now.
No, I think it's so. I think it's so important, you know, that as we balance it out, you're right. We could have 2 hours straight and continue to read these stories, but it's important to balance it out as we do here with these stories of hope, the fitness segments, everything, to let people know that it's all not gloom and doom. But when that gloom and doom is real, it's real, and it's really hurting and affecting our families. Rebecca, this also ties into our other segment. You were talking about the family from Myanmar and what happens when you come to the United States and realize that you don't really have the protections that you thought you may have. Rebecca, this isn't Louisiana. This isn't Lafayette County. This was right here where you and I reside, in the DMV, blue towns, right? People think, that, well, what should people know who feel like they're in their comfort zones wherever they are because they're not in a red state or they don't have to deal with this particular governor? Can you enlighten them on that thought?
Absolutely. I'm going to answer your question. And I saw a couple comments in the chat I also want to respond to. Someone's asking, am I a lawyer? Absolutely. I'm not your lawyer. I'm not representing you here tonight, but I am a licensed attorney. So here's the thing. You know, I hear Scott talk about training. You can't train this away. The system is working exactly in which how it was designed. Prior to 1865, we had the Pinkertons. They were detectives. So when there was crime that was happening, you would either hire a Pinkerton or maybe there was a sheriff as you went into more of the Western states to help solve the crime. But guess what happened after 1865? All of a sudden, you had these new things called police and police departments. Guess what they were tasked with doing? Keeping those newly free Black folks in line, right? So let's be honest. Law enforcement was designed to keep the Black folks who were formerly enslaved now in line. So the other thing that we saw rapidly post 1865 is that it was illegal not to have a job. It was illegal to be standing around and being homeless. It was I think it was called vagabond laws. So basically, if you were just released from slavery, you're newly free, you don't have a job, you don't have a house, you are wandering around the countryside because you're actually trying to find your family that was split up decades over decades, which is also why Black people have family reunions. It goes back to our lived experience through American slavery, right? And so it's not by coincidence that now you have law enforcement agencies that are largely, I know we're talking about Black and brown here, but are largely attacking Black folks because police departments were derived, its genesis was very anti-Black. So what we're seeing today is what it was designed to do. So I do not view our law enforcement system as being broken. I view it as being very effective and efficient at what it was designed to do. And so even seeing this particular instance in DC is quote unquote liberal. Sure, it's blue. And so it doesn't matter if you are in a state run by dogs or you're in a state run by cats. We still have these same systems. And so something else I saw in the chat was, how do we protect our personal peace? I'm going to shout out Omakongo here. He and his wife have a wellness center, Bikram Yoga Works, where they do a lot of holistic and wellness work. I go there in part for stress management. You know why? Because it's very tough. Like what Scott was saying, we could literally spend every Unfiltered show talking about the hundreds and thousands of incidents of anti-Blackness at the hand of the state, at the hand of law enforcement in this country. One thing I do know, in order for us to survive this, keep our cortisol levels down, keep our stress management, we have to figure out ways in our Blackness to still have joy. We have to figure out ways how to survive and how to protect our peace and protect ourselves, even as we're covering these types of stories. So I'm just shouting out, if you're in the DC area, look up Bikram Yoga Works. It's very beneficial for your holistic and physical and mental well-being.
Thank you for that unscripted shout out. And hey, y'all can come take class with me tomorrow, 12 to 1:30, Riverdale Park, Hot Pilates. Let's get it in. I teach twice a week. Come through. Well, and while you're talking about issues relating to accountability and what needs to be happening, let's look at a story that could actually give us an example of accountability. We have 2 Georgia college students. They've been awarded $2 million for being tased and detained during a 2020 protest. Tanaya Pilgrim and Messiah Young were arrested on May 30th, 2020 for a curfew violation. The curfew was in place following protests over George Floyd's death in Minneapolis. Pilgrim alleged the officers stormed their car, smashed the car windows, and physically assaulted them. A judge ruled the evidence in the case, which was investigated by the Georgia Bureau of Investigation, showed that the officers' use of force, including use of a taser, was because Young and Pilgrim refused to obey their commands. The 2 officers were fired after the incident, but later reinstated to the Atlanta Police Department. The officers never faced charges. So there's some accountability there, Scott, but not full, because you mentioned earlier they can go to another police department or, in this case, actually be rehired again, but there was financial compensation. How do you parse it?
Well, civil justice is really the best way to approach these police brutality cases. The young brother from Morehouse, I'm an alumnus of Morehouse, the young sister from Spelman College, you can tell from the video, they got guns drawn on these kids. The kids didn't have any weapons or anything. Okay, they violated the curfew. They were in the car. You could see they were scared to death, in distress, because of the guns being drawn on them, and the police in military tactical gear pulling them out of the car. They weren't doing anything. And so here's again where you say, well, how do you de-escalate a situation like this? You can see her saying, stop, stop. They're trying to drag her out, but they're stressed out. The police are driving the escalation, and so they finally get them out. But if you were surrounded by police with guns and military tactics, they just broke his window, let me tell you, your stress level and your nervousness and your ability to focus on what their commands are is out of control, because your brain is processing lots of information, confusing information, and threatening information. And your fear level is at the highest. And just look, they're tasing them. And the young brother who's driving, he has his hands on the wheel. He's keeping his hands up because he's had the conversation with his mom and dad. And let me tell you something. They deserve that $2 million. They better stay in school, though, because that $2 million is only going to go so far.
True that. I mean, especially if inflation goes up and down, you never know what's going to happen. Rebecca, this kind of targets what you were talking about as it relates to the yoga and wellness space, right? But the mental state of Black people in this country. We have these conversations, and it sort of seems like we have this kind of low bar now where we say, well, at least they only got tased. At least they only got bit by the dogs. At least they only got shot in the leg, right? At least they didn't get shot. And that's supposed to make us feel better and uplifted. But all these scenarios are terrible. What are we supposed to be doing as it relates to working to change these narratives that so many of us have come to accept because this has become so commonplace in our communities? How do you see it?
You know, we really got to push this government to do research on the impacts of racial stress. One of the terms that we heard of is called weathering. Weathering means even though we all look young, black don't crack, great. We drink water, moisturize, use shea butter, but our insides are weathering, meaning our insides are aging faster than what our biological age is. And that's due to racial stress. So when so many black folks have high blood pressure, it's not always because of diet, but it's also because of stress, of always being in that trauma, in that fight or flight mode, which means that our parasympathetic systems aren't activated, but we're actually, we're thinking we're constantly under duress because we are under duress. So we need to push this government and actually doing more research on it. But also many folks here, I know there's some new folks tonight. I always talk about reparations, and then tier 1 of the reparations package needs to be a mental health package where we all get free for a lifetime quality mental health care through therapy and other therapeutic avenues. Like we got to take care of ourselves because regardless of even what happens November 2024, the hoods have come off. We know what we're up against. And so we're going to have to dig.
And that's stress.
Go ahead.
That's stress at every level too, by the way. I don't care what your economic income is. If you're black, whether you're rich, poor, the lost, the least, the left out. Just last week, I can tell you right now, just last week, my alarm went off at 3 in the morning, right? I specifically, right? The police came to my door. I specifically, this is too much information, but went to the door purposefully with just a t-shirt and some shorts on, right? With my ID, because it was 3 in the morning, right? And I didn't want any mistakes.
Yes.
I didn't want any misunderstandings. Right? I had no jewelry on, and I went to the door just like this. Just like this with my license, right? And the police knocked on the door. I opened the door, said, "Good evening, officers." My alarm went off. Here's my ID. I can answer any questions you want. If you want to look around, you can. Thank God they knew me or recognized me and said, "Mr. Bolden, we're just checking on you." And they gave me my ID back. And then I went back upstairs, put on my pajamas, right? And went back to bed. But that 15 minutes for me as an African-American man was stress at a high level that people that don't look like me will never experience. Because when they engage with the police, they don't have stress levels per se. They're officer friendly, right? They don't have to go through taking their baseball cap up, keeping their hands on it. They get out of the car and walk back to the police and say, "Why are you stopping me," right? If I did that, oh my goodness gracious, man, I may not be here talking to you right now. And so wherever you are in your life, whatever station, if you're black and you're engaging with black or white or brown police officers, right, it's a heightened level of stress as a black man, and black women too for that matter. It's heightened level that you will never get through until it's done. When they get behind me in my nice car, I start making left, right, long way home. My former wife said, what are you doing? I said, I don't want the police behind me. I think they're following me, and I'm going in and I'm taking the long way home because I don't want no mistakes, man. I don't want them to end my life early. I got too much work to do. I got a family, and I got too much work to do with our people in our community. It's that important for us as black people. It's that important.
No, absolutely. And Bill for y'all is basically saying no one's coming to save us. We got to save ourselves because if we don't, we've already lost before we even continue to try to finish this game. And so, and it's not even a game, it's very serious. And so I appreciate both of you all sharing those stories and giving real tips about what we need to do personally as well as in our community in order to really put ourselves in a position to overcome this. I really do appreciate that, and I know the audience does as well. You're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. We'll be right back.
Fanbase is pioneering a new era of social media for the creator economy. This next generation social media app with over 600,000 users is raising $17 million, and now is your chance to invest. For details on how to invest, visit startengine.com/fanbase or scan the QR code. Another way we're giving you the freedom to be you without limits.
Hey, what's up? It's Tammy Roman.
Hey, it's John Murray, the executive producer of the new Sherry Shepherd Talk Show.
It's me, Sherry Shepherd, and you know what you're watching, Roland Martin Unfiltered.
Fanbase founder Isaac Hayes III is here with some good news. They just crossed the $1.6 million raised mark. Isaac joins us from Atlanta. Isaac, how are you doing?
Doing amazing. How are you doing?
I am great. I'm so happy that you're here. I am an investor in Fanbase as well. Once I first saw you and Roland Martin talking about it, I immediately went in and put up some money. And please just let us know about this new milestone.
Yeah, we just reached $1.6 million raised in our equity crowdfund. And to explain what equity crowdfunding is, it's just the opportunity for anybody that's watching or listening right now to actually have ownership and actually real shares in stock in Fanbase. And so we launched a $17 million round earlier this year. It's going to help us scale Fanbase to 1 million users. We're almost at 700,000 users. It'll help us scale past 1 million users. And we just reached $1.6 million. When we reach 1.7 million, we'll be at 10% of our goal. And so I'm always, excited to be able to come on here and talk about the success that we're having with raising capital for the platform, but a lot of other things that we have going on at Fanbase. But I encourage everybody to actually go to fanbase.app/invest, and you'll be able to invest in Fanbase today. The minimum to invest is $399. So if you see that icon right there and you click it, you can put in the amount that you want to invest. The minimum amount is $399, and you can actually have shares in Fanbase and own equity in this startup today. So it's really important to be able to do that. And I'm so excited to be able to talk about that.
And so could you talk also about why you went this route? Because in so many instances, people have these startups, they got great plans, then they get a big board member or a sponsor or something like that, and things don't necessarily go the way they expected. Why did you go this route by building it from the grassroots up like this?
If you wanted me to be honest, I would say racism.
You want honesty.
Yeah. And what I mean by that is racism. What I mean by racism is that Black founders don't get, funded. We don't get funded. In 2023, less than 1% of all the dollars that went to everybody that raised capital from venture capital funds went to Black founders. Less than half of 1%. So there's a bias there. So the ability for us to fund our own businesses through equity crowdfunding is something that is incredible. It was actually a law that was put into effect by Barack Obama and Joe Biden, the Jobs Act. And so it took away this rule that only allowed rich people to invest in early stage companies. And now anybody can invest in early stage companies. And so I had to go that route because it was the only option available for me, because VCs don't want to see a Black man build a tech startup that rivals Instagram and Facebook, and not them really be able to get a huge chunk of the company. And I'm offering the ability for anybody that's watching and listening right now to actually have equity in Fanbase.
Now, before I go to the panel, I know we're not here to talk politics like that, but many of us didn't even know that the process you're using was brought in, by the Obama-Biden administration. So you educated us there as well. Thank you for that. Rebecca, do you have any questions?
See you tonight. So it's going to be a long weekend. I am committing to transferring or to migrate all of my existing social media to Fanbase. So can you walk me through, how do I do that?
Yeah, well, first of all, I'd like to say that we've actually filed a patent on content migration. So that means that if you have a TikTok account or an Instagram account inside of Fanbase itself, you can go inside the settings of the app, tap you want to import your content from either Instagram or TikTok. You take a link, this gray link, and copy it into your bio on Instagram where it says bio, save that there. Your page must be public, can't be a private page. You got to make your page public, and then come back to Fanbase and put your username in, and then decide whether you want to import just your content or your bio and profile picture, and then it moves everything over in about 3 or 4 minutes. And that was a patent that we filed because I wanted people to be able to start Fanbase with content, because part of Fanbase's, genius is the fact that you can have followers, but you can also have subscribers, and people can tip you for your content. So imagine taking everything that you've had on Instagram or TikTok for the past 5, 6, 7, 10 years and putting it on a platform where people can actually tip you for that very same content. That is why I want to be able to do, because I think tipping for content, being able to monetize your content is something that is definitely going to be part of the future. So I wanted to be able to put people in the position to monetize immediately.
And bro, it works because, Isaac, I went in on Fanbase and I was like, I'm kind of behind on getting some of my content in, but I did that import thing and I'm not the most tech savvy guy. But when I went in, it was all there. I was like, oh, shoot, the import, so any of y'all out there who ain't tech savvy like myself, it's such an easy process. Isaac is not lying to you. I did that as well, and it was like a whole new world. Scott, your question.
Just real quick, I just love when Fanbase is on, and I love when my man is on. He's doing revolutionary things. The graphic that was put up said it was $6.65 per share. If the minimum investment is $3.99, what does the individual investors get? About 50 shares, or is it more or less than that?
Yeah, actually 60 shares of stock in Fanbase. You want to be getting 60 shares of stock in Fanbase. And what's important about that too also is that Fanbase's valuation has grown 4 times. We were a $20 million valuation when we first started in 2020. We went to 50 million, 85 million, and now we're raising at $160 million valuation. Why that is important is the value of Fanbase will continue to increase year after year. This is something that I'm taking to the long term, the long haul. I see Fanbase as potentially and eventually $100 billion company. So I see people being able to I want people to be able to have a return of 5,000x, 2,500x, 1,000x return. And so, you don't often get that opportunity with tech startups, but here's the amazing and honestly, genius part about this. You yourself as the investor have the ability to increase the value of Fanbase by using the platform that you're invested in. And on top of that, we have many users on Fanbase that were investors that have actually made the money that they've invested by using Fanbase and have people tip their content, subscribers, and made the money back that they actually spent to invest in Fanbase. So they're actually invested in the startup for free at this point when they put $300, $400 in the platform, and they've actually made $400 using Fanbase. So now you have equity in a company for free.
Yep, without a doubt. And I think your marketing concept, the fact that you're on the Blackstar Network regularly, marketing this concept, and I know you're probably doing other things, but marketing is so important to being an entrepreneur. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, and actually with this raise, it's actually a lot different from the other raises that I've done. I raised $10 million in the Reg CF level, so I'm the first Black man to ever raise $10 million in Reg CF crowdfunding. We maxed that out. Like I've broken records there. Right. When you go to the Reg A level of equity crowdfunding, you can raise up to $75 million in a calendar year. We chose $17 million because it gives us the ability to actually raise more money, but there are some restrictions. I can't do programs unless there's a clickable link to the raise. So right now, even when we're watching this program, if you're watching it on YouTube, the link to invest in Fanbase is in the description in YouTube right now. You can actually click the link to invest in Fanbase right now in the YouTube description or wherever you are. So I'm limited from just getting on like live television, which I could have done before, live radio before. So I got to do podcasts. I have a new episode of Jamal Bryant's podcast dropping on Thursday, actually. Yeah, tomorrow. I think it actually drops tomorrow. And then, other podcasts that I'm doing, and I'm speaking at the podcast summit tomorrow with David Shands. And so I'm excited to be able to, have these opportunities to actually reach people, but it's a lot harder. So we have to be strategic about the way that we market. So platforms like Blackstar Network and Roland Martin provide an enormous opportunity and an outlet for me to be able to reach investors that I can't normally reach, or I was able to reach when I was raising in the Reg CF level. So I appreciate being able to come on here and tell people to go invest. And again, you can go to fanbase.app/invest. One more time, fanbase.app/invest. If you want to invest in Fanbase, you can do it right now. We're at $1.6 million. I want to get to 1.7 over the weekend. And then we're going to go to 2.5 million, all the way to 17 million and close this round.
Well, Isaac Hayes III, I want to thank you not just for creating an incredible platform, but also for bringing us along with you, not being guarded about stuff, educating us about the whole process, because quite honestly, I feel the ownership in this company, unlike any other social media platform I've ever been a part of. And so I really thank you for what you're doing, and I wish you continued success, and I absolutely believe we're going to hit that. And I said we, not you, because this is our platform. We are going to hit that 1.7 million over this weekend. Thank you so much for coming on.
Absolutely. Thank you guys very much.
No doubt. And that's going to do it for Roland Martin Unfiltered tonight. I want to thank A. Scott Bolden and Rebecca Carruthers for joining us tonight. And Roland is enjoying his trip in Ethiopia. We'll get some updates for that as well. Everyone enjoy your holiday and be safe as well. See you next time. Holla.
Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punch!
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?